Welcome back to the Drone Racing Network. This week, I have a very special guest. We're going to be talking to a unbelievable pilot, somebody who got runner-up last year in one of the biggest racing leagues, the Drone Racing League, and just a huge inspiration, a dear friend. We have Halowalker. How you doing, Leon?
Pretty good. What's up, everybody?
So I want to talk a little bit about kind of your story and how you got into drone racing, or even just flying drones in general. Grew up in Germany, but how did you get into the sport?
Oh, it started all the way back for me. I started out with RC cars. Always liked RC stuff as a kid. Just having control over something that goes fast. Had my first RC car when I was 10, I think, and then it started from there. Started out with helicopters that I flew in the living room and crashed every 2 weeks. And then at some point, my neighbor had a quadrocopter, and I thought it was super sick. And then I wanted one, of course. Got one for Christmas. Flew it into a 3-day one. You know how it is. It took forever to get that thing out of there. And then a friend of mine also started falling in love with quadrocopters and drones, and it was each time one of us had a better drone, and we pushed each other until we started flying FPV, which was I think 2013. We were practicing on the sim on our phones in the lunch breaks and stuff, and that's how I started with my FPV journey, and just was freestyling whenever I could with him. Yeah, and then I was about to stop flying FPV actually, because the drone I had back in the day, I broke the FPV antenna off, and I thought I wouldn't burn the VTX if I just didn't use the goggles. So I flew line of sight for at least 9 months, and then at some point, right before I gave it one last shot, and then right before I was about to quit, I flew FPV for the very first time, actually knowing what I was doing on the sticks, because I knew how to fly FPV on the sim, but it never fully translated to IRL. And then at that point it finally clicked, and it was the best thing ever. And at that point I was hooked, I couldn't stop.
That's amazing. It's funny you say that about being so good at being line of sight, because I know a lot of your Instagram posts and things like that, you will send off a drone line of sight. You'll even bring a drone back to yourself line of sight. And I'm sure you could do so much more, where that's something very unique. I know a lot of really phenomenal pilots who can't do anything line of sight.
I mean, it is hard. It's very technical. One of the reasons Minchan is so good at it, he has a background in RC helis, 3D helis, which are super technical to fly. And I've tried on a sim for 10 minutes and gave up immediately. It's what they do is insane.
Right. So then you get into drone racing. Tell me about your one of your first few builds that really get you into from just flying FPV into oh, what if we could race these? What if we could go really fast?
Well, I was watching DRL a little bit on the side with my friend. We were both there when Jet won his second world title, when Nurk won his first world title. And then I was struggling to just have one drone up in the air every time some stupid component burned out or something like that. Just always the small things, and I had to wait for a month till the new part came out of China because I was too lazy to pay 10 extra euros for it to come earlier. And then at some point I did my exchange year in Houston, and that's where I actually got my start in racing, because my FPV sim, I bought Velocity Drone, and it didn't work for some reason on the laptop, on the PC that the host family had. And then I borrowed a different sim. It was what was it? It was a different sim, and on there I actually just started racing for fun, and kept beating my own time and got addicted to just improving, and seeing the improvement in numbers. And then towards the second half of the exchange year, I actually realized there's a pretty big group that does FPV racing in the area I live in. And so I just came out to them with my freestyle drone and my giant box goggles.
Yeah.
And I don't know, 40 hours on DCL the game. I knew a lot more about DRL and stuff and the TV racing scene than they did. And I knew a lot more about freestyle, but it was nowhere near as good as a pilot as they were. They were just insane. And then from there on, I started building my first race drones, getting better goggles, for more suited for racing, and started getting more serious about it. And then I came back towards winter, I downloaded DRL because it was like 50% off. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's my deal, 8
Yep.
euros. And then I just wanted to see if I could, like, I watched one of the races back, looked at Jet's time and tried to beat it on the sim. Got it within like 10 minutes. I was like, oh, I'm better than Jet. And then
Wow.
from there on, I just didn't stop. And I actually flew solo for like the longest time. And what really inspired me with racing is like flying with other people.
Mm-hmm.
I like the most I've flown with other people was like 4 times or something. And it was like just me and my friend out in the field in the middle of nowhere, and
Right.
then you like there's no one cheering you on or like celebrating if you like do something cool or something like that. And with racing, it's like everybody's so supportive.
Mm.
If you break something, there's like 5 other people, so one of them at least one of them has a motor. And usually, if it's just like some hobbyists out in the field, like everyone has like their one little drone and then probably no replacement parts. It's probably different for like actual freestylers that fly bandos that have like 5 different quads with them. But
Sure.
yeah, racing definitely had more of an open community, easier to just talk to people, get help. If you're at a race and you have problems with your quad, there's like 10 people helping you immediately,
Yeah.
trying to fix it. Some guy knows something that the other doesn't, and everybody just shares all the knowledge they have. And that's what I love about FPV.
That's awesome. And what year was that you were doing your exchange here in America?
That was oof, 2019,
Okay.
2018, 2019. And then when I came back, winter 2019, I started flying DRL. I just did solo racing, and then at some point I jumped on multiplayer, and there was like this one German streamer who was like, I'm gonna get this guy in 4K," and
Yeah.
then I beat him. I was like so happy, and then some other guy joined in. It was like kind of on my level, so I was
Hmm.
like, we kind of were flying back and forth, racing. Like he was winning, I was winning, and then so on. And then at some point we started leaderboard smashing. Like we connected via Discord, started hanging out every other day, and just pushing each other. And that's what really set us apart from everybody else that was on the sim. Because within like 3 months, we got to the very top, and then
Who
we
was
were
that?
flying Star. He's actually
Okay.
flying DCL now.
That's awesome.
So we both had our start to the professional side of racing at a very similar time, and
Hmm.
then we had the tryouts 2020. So right around when COVID hit, we had a lot of time to practice, put in more hours on the stakes than ever before, and then we both made it to the top 12. I edged him out a little bit. I think I was eighth, he was 10th, and then right after that, we immediately jumped over to the DCL sim because they had their tryouts like at the same time,
Hmm.
and then they had a second draft after their tryouts because they ended before the DRL tryouts, and weren't going to jump off for DCL. And then we both got drafted in the second draft. I won, he got second in that draft, and then he started flying for the Chinese team, China Dragons, and I
Hmm.
started flying for Raiden Racing, which was the Japanese team at the time.
Yeah.
And right after that one season, I flew for them. Actually, I broke both my arms the day I signed the contract. Forgot to mention that.
You
That
broke
was
both
kind
your
of that.
arms.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. I like, I was like so happy. Finally got my first professional contract, and then literally the day I signed, day two of the summer holidays, I just broke both my arms in a bicycle wreck, and then
No. Oh, that's horrible.
yeah, so I ended up flying only like the last 2 races of that season. But I recovered pretty fast.
Let's fast forward. So you're racing professionally for DCL at the time, and this is in like COVID 2020, and then the 2021 tryouts come around for the DRL. Are you? I mean, you're fully back as far as your arm's healed and you're physically back, but like, what was your thoughts going into those tryouts?
Well, I knew how well I did the year before, and I knew that a lot of the other competitors that were in those tryouts were either already on DRL or didn't just didn't have as much free time as I
Hmm.
did. So for example, Alex, I think he was second in those tryouts. He got drafted literally the same like he kept saying how he had like injuries and couldn't participate in the 2021 tryouts, but it was clear that he already had a contract pretty much. And then so one competitor less. Headset was already gone. Amari was gone the year before, and then so on. And I like realized that like my only main competitors are going to be Star, I was
Hmm.
battling with the year before, and Pavelos. And from there on, I just grinded Like I don't think I've put in as much time on the sticks ever again.
So it was 2021, is that correct, when you won the DRL tryouts?
Yeah. I remember we had the qualifying going on like three different tracks or one. I don't remember. Anyway, like we grind at that track hard, and I mean, it was clear we were going to be top 24, but just the bragging rights of like being that number one spot going to the into the brackets was just it was such a fight between me and Star because everybody
Yeah.
else was like, well, I'm qualified, and just us two like a second ahead, just trying to edge each other out by like milliseconds. And then the race was middle of the night, of course. It was like 2 a.m., 4 a.m. I think for us.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, that was a very emotional moment winning that race because there was so much other like just personal drama going on at the same time too.
Hmm.
Like it was insane.
Yeah. Because then out of that, you ended up getting what's now a career in drone racing, drone piloting, things like that. Like, what is your current? Obviously, you're a pilot in the DRL. You were last season. We're looking forward to whatever's going to come in the future. But at the same time, what is your current career looking like in drones and piloting?
Well, with the DRL season on hold and other leagues having their winter breaks and stuff, I'm of course trying to get into the filming part of things.
Hmm.
I won't be able to do this for maybe I can do it for another 8 years, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it forever. Like we keep seeing the fastest pilots are getting younger and younger. I
Hmm.
think like the fastest ones are maximum 18. There's some really fast ones that are like 16 too.
Yeah.
It's just they have the time to practice. They have just you learn things in a completely different way when you're a kid, which is one of the reasons why I think Min Chan is so good. Why I'm so good. Like I did this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That no one is going to be 20 and start flying FPV and be this good at this.
Right.
So I think for me the future is definitely in film. Um, just with the attention I get through DRL, I have a lot more opportunities to reach out to agencies, companies, etc., get sponsorships. And through all those opportunities, I can definitely build myself a business, pretty much. I remember right after tryouts, I had people message me on Instagram, be like, "Yeah, like I bet you would shred on a Cinelifter. Like, how? Like, are you still in high school?" And then I had to turn those opportunities down to finish high school, and
Yeah.
then the film strike came in, and
Hmm.
COVID still isn't over, and just a bunch of things. But I think it's slowly but surely starting to open up again. I'm doing what I love, and I'm very grateful for that. I mean, these like past two seasons with DRL have been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Especially the last one. The one before that wasn't that good. Because for that I was actually still in high school. So for the sim parts, I like went to bed as soon as I got back from school. Woke up in the middle of the night to like start practicing, warming up again. And then after the race was over, it was like 6 a.m. I had like an hour's sleep and then went to school. Like, and
Yeah.
then that was during the exam phase as well. So I had to like study somewhere in between too.
Right. Right.
It was
Right.
pretty crazy.
That's wild. So, what would be your advice to somebody, as somebody who is went from just I'm going to fly with a friend of mine, I'm just going to grind in the sim, things like that. What's your advice to somebody who maybe want to be aspiring to become a professional pilot?
Well, I think definitely just in general, the way to start an FPV is get a controller, get a sim, and just put in the time. Like nothing is more important than controlling your drone in a safe way. Knowing what you're doing. If you still have to think about what you're doing on the sticks, you're not meant to be flying a 5 inch in like a park full of people yet.
Hmm.
Like that's keep it slow. I know the Instagram videos of like drones going 200 miles an hour in like a second are insane and crazy to watch, and you want to get there as fast as you can, but take it slow.
So, where do you see drone racing going in the future? Like, if you were to just kind of look out, obviously things happen in life. Like you said, COVID, and then there was the writer strike, which had effect on the cinema side of things. But as far as racing is considered, where would you like to see drone racing in the next 10 years?
Good question. I like where we are right now. I think it is going in the right direction. People like I every time I tell somebody I race drones for a living, they're like, "You what?" Like I've never
Yeah.
heard of it. So I think we're still at the stage where like people don't know what it is. As soon as we get to the part where Formula One is, where people are just like, "Oh yeah, no, I've heard of it. I've
Hmm.
seen it." Um, we just gotta spread the word, I guess. It's like get your friends together, show them what it is, pretty much. And then I think the future could be. It's hard to say because aerial racing is always a lot more dangerous than racing on the ground.
Hmm.
If you look at Red Bull Air Racing, they're not going at the same time. It's just one by one in its time trials. And
Yeah.
I personally, that's not where I want to see drone racing going. Man racing could be super cool, and I think there is a future for it where we get to the point where everybody has like their little invisible cage and nobody can collide because the sensors of the drones can see it and stuff.
Hmm.
If we get to that part where the safety systems are at that advanced, I think we could see it. But until then, I think remote racing is going to be where it's at.
Yeah.
Maybe bigger, maybe faster, maybe louder, brighter, etc. But I think to a certain degree, the drones are already pretty big. We already have trouble passing and going through gates at the same time,
Hmm.
and bigger drones are not going to make that easier. And I think close racing is what excites people. It's the same thing with Formula One. Nobody wants to watch a race where Max Verstappen finishes 5 laps ahead of everyone else.
Right.
Like, it's not fun anymore. So definitely spec racing, a little bit bigger, faster, bigger audiences, bigger stages. There's so much potential.
Yeah.
I saw a video on YouTube. A guy built like an ultralight 5-inch with lithium-ion batteries, and on cruise speed, he could do like 55 minutes flight time.
Whoa.
FPV. And I think something that would be so sick to see is like a 2-hour race. Similar to Formula One, there's like
Yeah.
two pilots and the pit crew around them, and that's like one team. And then you've like 8 drones, teams of like 2 drones for each team, and you do like strategies. You do strategic flying, and you have a throttle cap where the max speed of the drone is like 80 miles an hour or something,
Yeah.
and they fly for like 40 minutes, and you have one mandatory battery swap or something. That could be such a cool race. It could
That
be
would be
so sick. And then
amazing.
if you implement the DRS thing from Street League with like the
Yep.
foot pedals and like that'd be so sick.
That
Oh
would be
my god.
amazing. I mean, anything, I would say my biggest qualm, I think so. My biggest qualm with DRL races are after 2 minutes, there's a 5 minute commercial break, and it's just like the
But also,
flow gets broken up so much.
yeah, but I feel like if you did another lap in DRL, like after 2 laps, the spread is already too big.
That's true. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's it's the spread is so big so fast, and I think if you have if you implement strategic opportunities like you recharge your boost, so you lower the RPMs of the motors for like half a lap or something, and
Hmm.
slowly recharge the boost like that. You have a teammate that you can fly with together, so like you fly side by side to push the rest of the field back with your prop watch or something like that.
Sure.
You have multiple laps, and you only have one drone per pilot, so crashes matter a lot more. So if you overtake someone or you're trying to overtake someone, you have to actually be strategic about it. And at those speeds, if they're like 60 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, that's actually when you have the time, they're slow enough, you can actually
Hmm.
think about passing someone. In MultiGP, no shot anybody does anything when they don't
Right.
think about passing. They just think about not crashing and making it through the track.
Yep.
DRL, you already have that where you like, if I'm right behind Amari or something on a straight, I'm gonna swing wide or fly above him to get out of his prop wash, and then try to take the next turn tighter, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you have like, there's so much potential, and I feel like that's where I want to see racing go in the future.
Yeah,
But I think
absolutely.
AI racing is also something very interesting, but I think we would see that in cars first.
Hmm.
And I don't think we are going to see that anytime soon because it kind of takes the humanity away from the racing, like the emotions,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up there because I know DRL has a lot invested in AI and things like that. With their racer, is it just called Racer AI? There's a name for it.
Yeah, I think it's Racer Eye. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but either way, uh, there is money being invested into AI drone racing. At the same time, I see drone racing just like most sports. Like I like the storylines. I didn't get into F1 until I started watching Drive to Survive, and that's kind of what I want my channels to be, as well as just kind of informative to the community. But I want to excite people based on the storylines. And if there's just an AI or even a team that builds AIs that's not nearly as interesting as Halowalker's got a major rivalry now with MCK, and they're bringing that into the 2024 season. How can we see Halowalker make a comeback for the title? You were number one all of last season until the very end, which that
Oh yeah,
sucks. I mean,
it does. It does.
I hate to bring that up. I know it's probably a soft spot, but those are the storylines that get me excited. That I want to see way more than this AI was able to complete the race this much faster than the other team or anything like that. And so I want to see more and more of that personally.
Yeah, and I think that's what people can relate to a lot better. If it's
Hmm.
more of the technical terms and like they start talking about the code they implemented and stuff, people are gonna just shut down so
Yeah.
fast. And I think it is a bit more difficult to have something like Drive to Survive with DRL, I think. But I think there is potential and there definitely is opportunities to do that. And I think that's where DRL should try to head is have more behind the scenes stuff, something like Grill the Grid, build storylines and stuff like that. That's something that's a bit missing for me personally right now. It is difficult with drone pilots being a bit more nerdy, not as comfortable in front of cameras maybe. And then especially international pilots, maybe some of them don't know English as well.
Hmm.
But I think they managed to do it in Formula One, and I don't think all racing drivers are perfectly immediately know what they're doing in front of a camera. Like we
Right.
need the proper media training. It just takes time, and
Yeah.
now's the time. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's easy to forget that sports are just really a form of entertainment, and soccer players are just as much actors as actors are. They just have an incredible talent at this, as opposed to being an actor in a movie. They can bring eyeballs to a screen to sell advertisements because they're so talented at what they do. And in the same way, a drone pilot being talented is like the step one. That's how you get into it. And then from there, you have to be able to do what you have to sell sponsorships to the league. And so I think the pilots that are more into it, which you're definitely one of them. I've talked about Alex FPV in the past, just being like so into it. Vanover's very into it. Like those are the pilots that I really enjoy watching, because when you lose, I kind of like it when you just chuck the controller, and when you win, I love when you're just like all out and just like going nuts. And so that brings the enjoyment out for me as a fan, and I think that I'm definitely not alone in that. So
yeah, I totally agree. I think those are like you have those two options to like actually have viewers engage with the sport. It's like the sport itself and then the storylines. And
yeah,
then a lot of people are just going to be there for the storylines at first because they don't understand what's going on when they see it at the first for the first time. But if they see a guy like throwing a controller and punching the guy on his left in their face, like they're gonna know that he's mad and he probably
right,
lost or something. But like if they just sit in their chairs and like wait for the drones to be set up again and don't say anything, then like there's just nothing to see.
right. Well, what is your training regimen right now, and looking forward to 2024?
Uh, well, so there's this other league called DCL, and there's a team I used to fly for that I might fly for again in the future. So there
Whoa.
might be a comeback for Halowalker and DCL, for Raiden Racing.
Leon, thanks so much for being on the show. Thanks so much for your time and for all that you do for the realm of drone racing. I mean, you're just an incredible pilot and in the community and everything like that. If someone were to want to follow you or get in contact with you or whatever the case is, where can they find you?
Well, I'm Halowalker on pretty much all my socials. If not, there's no little O3 at the back of it. Little reminder from my Steam days back in DCL. But yes, Halo Walker on all my channels. I do YouTube a little bit. I'm trying. I really am. I'm trying to find the time. I have so much content from like the 2021, 2022 season that I'm trying to push out. But yeah, I do a lot of racing. I do a lot of filming. Hit me up there.
That's awesome. Hey, thanks so much for being on the show.
Appreciate it.